I never run alone anymore. My New Year resolution 2012 was to get in shape again. After my first kid was born, I had lost my athletic interest, but I had every intention of getting it back. So I started running 4 days a week with my friend Hannah, who is a great runner and motivator. We would run after work, 5 to 10 km, usually favoring the forest trail. It's a kind of trail that you got lightning in the darker months of the year, so you can run there anytime really. Once you turn on the lights, you get about 45 minutes to run the shorter trails, the longer to run the longer ones, then the lights shut off automatically. We had been running for about 2 months when we started seeing the same man hang around the parking lot every time we got there. Thin man, 25 to 30 years of age, always dressed in sports clothes and never actually running though. He never looked you in the eye either. We speculated that he could be homeless camping nearby because he was constantly there. We got used to seeing him, sitting somewhere close by, silently and always on his own. We felt sorry for him. He never seemed to talk to anyone or interact at all, but was something about him which made us hesitate to talk to him or ask if he was okay. Can't pinpoint what it was, but something wasn't completely right with him. One evening, Hannah didn't make it to our run, and I decided to go on my own. I arrived at the parking lot, my car being the only car there. I did some stretching, turned on the lights, and set off on the 5 km trail. I hadn't seen the thin, silent man when I started my run. Perhaps it was getting too cold to sit there now, that it was autumn, dark, and getting closer to the freezing point. He must have been there, though, somewhere in the shadows, because when I got to the top of the first steep hill, I could hear heavy breathing somewhere behind me. I looked over my shoulder and I see him. He is running like a man obsessed, in regular shoes, not running shoes, with his arms moving in a really strange, stiff manner, as if he was made of metal. His hands like arrows, straight and in an upward-inward angle, sort of like a sprinter, but more extreme, moving like a robot. For the first time, he looked me straight in the eyes, and it was the eyes of a predatory animal, and it made my heart freeze. He had never done anything to harm me, or anyone else as far as I knew, but the look in his eyes alone was enough to let me know that I was facing a serious threat. I started running faster, trying to create distance between us, and I could hear his heavy breathing getting even more strained. I ran like my life depended on it, adrenaline pumping through my body and giving me new strength. I tore off my necklace and threw it on the ground, thinking, I must leave a trace if he takes me. Something must be left behind. I tried screaming, hoping someone would be close enough to hear me, but I couldn't scream my lungs out and keep up the pace at the same time. Why is he doing this? What does he want? Who is he? I thought, as I started to feel my lungs burn. Then I thought of my 15-month-old daughter and ran until I could taste blood in my mouth. He was still behind me, maybe 100 meters behind now, but I figured that if I trip and fall or run out of energy or fumble with the car keys once I reach the parking lot, then I'm screwed. So once I reached a sharp turn on the trail, I went off the trail and ran straight into the dark woods. I only ran a short distance and then I laid down flat on my stomach, my hands searching for a rock to defend myself with if he found me. I realized that I was wearing bright running clothes with reflexes in neon colors. I had never felt so visible in the dark before. I could hear him reach the turn and thank God, kept on running. I started to slowly, and as silently as possible, move further into the darkness. My heart sank again. As soon as I heard rapid footsteps closing in from the trail, he had realized that I must have gone off the trail once he saw that there was no sign of me ahead. He stopped, and I stopped. I could imagine him listening for any sound, and I held my breath and begged to God. I didn't even believe in God, to make him go away. After a while, I heard him say something in a language I didn't recognize and walk off. I didn't move. I feared that he would wait for me by the car and realized that I got off the trail and onto the main road and stopped someone. I couldn't go back to the parking lot. I started to make my way further into the woods, knowing that I would eventually end up on the last part of the long trail and close to the main road. The lights on the trail suddenly shut off. That made me calmer at first. The dark was a comfort and protection. But then, after only a few moments, it switched on again. This could mean that Another person had just started their run, and soon I would have someone there to help me, or that he was out there looking for me, or getting ready to prey on another lonely runner. I decided against waiting to find out, and continued my way towards the main road. It was dark, and I fell multiple times, my clothes getting wet from the damp vegetation, and I started to get cold. After what felt like a lifetime, I could see the 10 km trail ahead, and knew I was close to the main road. Soon I could hear the traffic. Once I made it to the road, I must have looked like I had been in a terrible accident. Blood from several small cuts from the falling, my clothes dirty, and my face, I assume, petrified. The bright runner's shirt soon attracted the attention of a passing car. My waving and desperate shouting made it stop. The driver, a 40-ish man with his 2 kids in the back seat, spent the next 10 minutes or so trying to make sense of what I tried to say between the sobbing and the crying. He asked if I wanted to lift back to the parking lot, and I told him no, please take me home instead. At home, my husband insisted on going to the parking lot to retrieve the car and calling the police. And report what? I asked. No crime had been committed. I just knew he was out to get me. My husband went back for the car. The driver's seat window was smashed, and my phone was gone. So was the photo of my daughter that I had hanging from the mirror. I don't know what he was trying to do, or why he chased me the way he did, but the look in his eyes, there was no doubt he had bad intentions. Creepy forest trail man. Let's never meet again. Gave a man directions, barely escaped kidnapping. I have always been more active at night, usually out for walks, runs, or even just hanging out at the park. I was 17 years old at the time of this incident, and knew this area like the back of my hand. I'm not usually scared of being out alone, as I lived in a really good neighborhood. Always make note of a safe place to go if I need help, depending where I am in the city. I was out for a run around 9 p.m. It was a beautiful night, and I decided to not take my phone with me. During my run, I crossed through a field beside an indoor pool and library, which is a very well-lit area. I planned to go across the lot, turn right, and head down by the river for the last stretch back home. I'm always checking my surroundings, with my head on a swivel. I noticed a man to my left. Taking out my earplugs, I slowed my jog and approached him, keeping about 2 arms length between us. I asked him if he was lost, and he let me know that he was looking for the soccer center. I gave him very, very clear instructions, and he repeated them back to me. He thanked me and hesitantly went on his way. My jogging route was on the same path, so I was able to watch to see if he was able to reach the destination. However, I kept that to myself. As I jogged on, I noticed a second person in the parking lot. He was looking at his phone, but all the other vehicles were empty and turned off. His was running. At the time, I thought nothing of it and continued on. I rounded the corner and the guy I spoke with had got stuck at a light, and he turned beside me shortly after and then stopped about 5 car lengths ahead and parked. He got out of the vehicle, which he turned off, and came to ask for more instructions. I kept my distance the best I could and again instructed him to go half a block up and turn another right. He then started tapping his pockets and told me he had locked himself out of the vehicle. He checked the 2 doors on the driver's side and then, since I was on the sidewalk, asked me to try the others. I did, and they were locked. He then came around beside me and checked the rear passenger door again, despite me trying it already. I backed away and told him I would be right back. I was going around the corner. It's at the end of the block with an eyesight and a bit to the left, to call a tow truck from the gas station. He, for some reason, tried to get me to stay while trying the doors again. I ran to the gas station. No one would let me use the phone, and no one had a coat hanger, so I casually walked back. It was then that I saw from a distance the second guy in his vehicle park 5 car lengths away from the first guy, and I watched as the first guy got back into his vehicle and they both drove off quickly in the same direction. It was at that moment I realized he was never locked out. He never needed directions. And this was all a ploy to kidnap some woman. I spun on my heels and walked back home on the busiest streets. No shortcuts, no back alleys, and no parking lots. I will never leave home without my phone again, and I'm so happy I kept my distance while interacting with him. Runner's high is dangerous. What could have possibly happened in my sophomore year of high school cross country. I had missed a Saturday morning practice, so I decided to go out for my long run later that evening. I am a terrible procrastinator, so I ended up leaving my house at 6 p.m., a half hour after I should have. I was in that beautiful runner's high that evening, so I just shrugged off the small gray car that kept slowing down by me and then leaving. I convinced myself that I was being paranoid and that it was several different cars. Anyways, I didn't do a loop run, and I was so into running that I did not realize it had begun to get dark when I started to head back. I'm trying to hurry because I was honestly still paranoid about that car. No matter how much I tried to rationalize the situation, I still had 2 miles to go by the time the sun had completely gone down. I was reaching the street that leads to a bunch of cul-de-sacs where my house was at, about 300 meters to my house. The car that I suspected seeing numerous times throughout my run stops at the corner where I would be turning. The man driving gets out of the car, leaving the driver door open, runs to the other side of the car, and opens the passenger door. Then he quickly runs and hops into the bushes, where he would be hidden from my point of view as I ran by. By this point, I had about 100 meters until I'd pass him. Nope. I crossed the street and ran a little bit further, and then crossed over again and sprinted home. I probably broke a record in that 200-meter sprint. I was almost kidnapped on a run. This happened when I was about 18 years old. I was big into running back then, and lived in a town that was a suburb, but had big swaths of farmland, as in smallish tomato and strawberry fields, not huge never-ending wheat fields. I preferred running on the dirt at the edges of these fields, because it was a lot easier on my legs than running long distances on concrete or asphalt, and I was usually training for half marathons, 13.1 miles for those who aren't insane enough to think running is fun. This particular day, I was planning to run an easy 6 miles. I told my mom, and she suggested I do a loop and meet them at the dog park about 3 miles from our house as my halfway point. This is pre-cell phone era, when all the craziest shit went down. But being careful, I took a walkie-talkie my dad always used, and my mom took the other one. Now, the walkie-talkie had a range longer than the ones my brothers and I played around with when we were little kids, but it's definitely not worked 3 miles away, and I honestly had no idea what its exact range was. So, I take off on my run. I'm planning to go on the sidewalk for a little bit, until I get to the fields. I think it was lettuce or something then, but short, small plants. I'm running in the dirt with the road a few yards to my left. I have to run south, and then turn right onto a slightly smaller, less traveled road to get to the dog park. As I'm running to the first dirt part, my parents drive by and, being dorks, they honk and wave and yell at me. I wave and then, soon after, make my turn onto the smaller road. This one is road, me on flat dirt, small drainage ditch, forever of lettuce field, then a wall that is backyard of some houses. I start noticing how quiet this street is, and how few cars are passing me by. Then, I randomly start thinking to myself, if someone tried to do something, I could run to those houses. No, they're not far away. But still, I never make it. Then, I hear a car. But this one doesn't pass me like all the others. I hear it slow down so that it is behind me, just out of my peripheral vision. My senses go super alert, and I immediately realize what a dumbass I was to pick this route, because I'm stuck out here with no one to help me and nowhere to hide. The car starts speeding up enough so that it's next to me, and I glance over and see a man, middle-aged, white, dark hair, totally normal looking, but I get a chill down my spine immediately. He sort of leans over into the passenger seat and says in a super sweet voice, "Hi, where are you going? Do you need a ride?" I am scared and I realize this is not good. Admittedly, nothing has happened yet. And he could be totally innocent, just wanting to chat, but my intuition is in overdrive, telling me I'm not safe. I hop over the ditch, thinking at least that it'll make it harder for his car to follow me if I need to take off across the field to try and make it in those houses in the distance. This pisses him off. He guns it and gets closer to the ditch and in front of where I am, and then he says in a voice I can only describe as bone-chillingly evil, "You know, you shouldn't be out here all alone. Something horrible could happen to you out here, and no one would ever know where to find you." He has put his car in park and has taken off his seatbelt when I remember the walkie-talkie. This piece of crap is all static because I'm too far away, so I immediately turn down the volume and say loudly, "Hey Dad! Yeah, I see your car. I'm coming over by this red Buick. Do you see me?" And I do a fake wave to nobody. There was no car coming from my direction my parents were, and when I had started talking, there was no one behind us either. But by the grace of the universe, at that exact moment, a car turned onto that road. The guy saw it, looked at me, and sped off so fast he left skid marks. I had never run faster in my life, and I was looking behind me every few seconds and thought he'd been waiting for me at every intersection I had to cross. I was shaking. I was so scared and relieved when I got to that goddamn dog park. I told my parents everything, and my mom called the cops. They took a statement but said it would just help if something actually happened to someone else. The weird part was, I was having trouble getting my story out. I was so upset, and before I gave a description of the car asked, "Was it a red Buick?" He wouldn't tell us why, but that just added to my feeling that I narrowly escaped something awful.